everyone's having a great day because this is morning for me when I'm filming this. So today we are going to make Jasper, our Pilgrim Gnome. I'm going to show you, I sewed his hat and I also did a hot glue one, and I will show you the difference. I prefer the sewing. For me, when I'm selling them, it looks more professional. The hot glue I have used in a few different places and it worked out okay. And I did these shoes differently, and I'm going to do other ones that I kind of like better. Miss Rose is going to be a totally different, this is Miss Rose. She's going to be a totally different video. So they're going to be two separate because they're a little bit labor intensive. And I'm going to show you how I did Jasper, and then Miss Rose is kind of the same way. She has got her little underneath, so she's just not naked under there. And I'm going to show you how I did a very, very easy way for them to stand up and with their shoes. And it is using the body that I use. And I have some other videos with some other bodies and other gnomes coming up that I will show you different ways to do a standing gnome and with the body. And then I'll show you how I did his hat and his shoes and then the little buckles. And he even has his little vest. And then Rose will be a separate video. So let's get going. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would love for you to join my crafting community and click on that subscribe button. And then when you hit that bell, that will notify you each time I upload a new video. You must have your settings your notifications in your settings turned on for that, to get that notification. So let's get going. If you already have subscribed, thank you very much for joining my crafting community. And I am going to do a giveaway for reaching my 1,000 subscribers, and I'm going to try to do that in the next couple of weeks. And then I will do a video and go over everything with you guys and how you can register for the drawing. So let's get going and make Jasper today. Okay, so let's get started on Jasper. We're going to do his body first. And we're going to take one of our socks, and you're going to take a decent size piece of your cardboard that you've cut in a circle. And this is about 2 3/4 inch diameter. And I will get the pattern for all the parts. I will link that in a free PDF below. So look in the description box and then put your rice in there. And then you're going to need your stuffing. And you're going to need like a box cutter or a X-Acto knife or a pair of scissors to go through the bottom of this and the fabric that goes over this. And I will show you why I'm doing that. You probably figured out it's going to be for his legs. And then you're going to need, I used brown fleece, so you're going to need some brown fleece. I think my square was about 12 by 12. So usually that I do not put in the pattern because it will not fit on an 8.5 by 11. But I always have, I try to always remember to do the supply list in the description box. So you're going to stuff this to the top of the sock, because we've kind of found out that if we don't stuff it all the way to the top, that when we go to tie off the body and the nose, that we have a little bit of problem. So if you are doing a lot of gnomes, get your stuffing at Walmart if you have that available to you. It is about 10 bucks for a bag of stuffing, and in there will come one of the turners, 1 or 2. So, okay, so now we're going to take his fabric, his body, and if I can find all my supplies that I've got. So I have brown fabric. And then you're gonna need your really strong thread, and I'm going to use black. There is a right and a wrong side. And I am in the process of working on my drawing my giveaway for my 1,000 subscribers. So stay tuned for that, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So you're gonna gather up, this is gonna be his front, where his face is gonna be, usually the heel. Grab all that and bring that up. And then we're going to tie this off like we always do. And you're gonna, the front is up here, or actually you're gonna flip it over, the back. So you're gonna hang on to all of this. And I drape it over the back, and I come around to from the front, wrap it around each end so that those ends come around the back. If that made sense. I know you guys, I show this in every video. So we have it over the back. This is the back of the head, the body. You're gonna wrap your this around to the back, go around to the front and to the back. And then you're gonna make sure that you have all of the gathers in there before you start tying it off. Even if they're a little loose, just make sure they're in there. And we can take, before you tie it really tight, is if you have enough room to scoot that thread up so you have a bigger body, then do that now before you tie it really tight, because you won't be able to move it up. So then if you just pull these threads and then check your gathers a little bit, don't start pulling them up too much now, but try scooting that thread up as close to the ends as you can if you want a bigger body. And then you're going to tie this off. I'm going to cut my excess. I'm sorry I'm using black thread. So I'm just trying to get this video started before I have to start work in a few minutes. So it's going to be in, I'm going to have to stop and go. So we're going to cut that off. Now you're going to take and you're going to work your gathers. If you have to get your needle nose pliers and pull them up. This is going to be, these, I use these all the time, you guys. You wait until you see what I'm going to be giving away, because it's going to be a lot of my favorite things that I use that when I craft. It may be some stuff that I have made for my craft fairs. It's going to be a nice box. And if the winner is overseas, it's really going to depend on how much it would cost me to ship it. If it's going to cost too much, then I will do a gift card. Okay, so there's our body. Now these are two different color browns, as you can see. So that's our body. So I'm going to have to take a break, and I will be back. So I'm back, and we have our body done. Okay, so we're going to set that aside, and we're going to work on his hat so we can get that out of the way. So I did one where I hot glued it, and I cut my two pieces like I do for the brim, like I did in my fall gnome, and I hot glued it and I let it dry really good, and then I turned it inside out, and I do not like it because I can't get it nice and rounded spots. I can see my glue, so I don't like hot gluing some things. I did this top part of the hat, and I can also see my glue, but that I could cover up with the strap that goes around his hat. This top part isn't real bad. That is kind of okay, but it does, to me, I don't care for it, because when I'm going to sell something, I want it to look very professional. So I am going to show you how I did the blanket stitch again, okay? And this one I got to the point where I ran out of thread, so I have to start over. But I'm going to show you how I did that. And let me get you close enough, because I got to make sure that you guys can see. So, and I'm going to try to use this contrasting thread. So you're going to knot your thread. You're going to get embroidery floss. You're going to need a needle. If you've never bought embroidery floss, go to your craft store. Go to where the knitting and stuff is. It will come like this. This is, there's different brands. This is DMC. This is one of the nicer ones. It comes like this. You're going to get a needle. And if you get a fat needle, it gets hard to go through your fleece. But you need to have the eye of the needle is where, if I can get this where you guys can see, the eye of the needle is the hole where your thread goes through, okay? There are videos on there for sewing and, you know, just basic sewing stuff. So you're going to thread your needle. I leave it, I knot one end, if I can get it untwisted, and then I will put it through and leave a tail on the other one. So if I have to take it off, if I mess up a stitch, I'm able to take it off. If you're sewing like clothes, you don't sew it that way. So we're going to start out, you're going to take and go through in between your two pieces. You're going to have this cut out. I'm going to have the pattern in the PDF. So you're going to come through so your knot is between these two. You're going to pull and you're going to cut really close to your knot and tuck that tail in. You're going to go on the opposite side, and I'm going about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, and you're going to come in where the same thread is coming out to start with. So we can start our blanket stitch. So then when you bring up and you've got this bigger loop, you're going to go through this loop with your needle and your thread. I go through twice. And you're going to pull that up and you're going to try to leave that on top here, okay? So now we're going to take our needle and we're going to go, and you're going to try to keep the spaces from this stitch to the next one the same, and from the edge to where this goes in the same. If you want them alternate, where one's bigger, one's longer, then you want to keep that consistent, okay? So we're going to go about 3/8 of an inch. And the way I do this is I put my needle in, I know what distance I need, and I'm going to try to go straight down through to the other side of my fleece. And I take this thread and I wrap it underneath my needle and come out on the other side of it. There are videos out there for blanket stitch. Some of them, they will go and they'll put it through, and then they'll just pull all this through, and then they'll bring up a loop and they'll put that through the loop. To me, that's too much of an extra step. I put my needle in and wrap it around so that the thread is underneath the needle and coming on the other side. Okay, so you guys can see that. And then I pull that up. You got to be very careful when you're working with a really long thread so it doesn't get tangled. You're going to keep working your way around. That thread goes under that needle. So then you've made that stitch that goes across there. And when I get done, this is going to be my top side of my hat, like right in through here, okay? So you're going to work your way all the way around, keeping your stitches consistent, the length of your stitch and the width of your stitch going from here to here. And try not to pull them too tight, otherwise you're going to pucker your hat. You're going to get where your stitches are not going to be nice and flat. And if you find it hard to work with the fleece and pulling the needle out, put a glove on. I have had to do that when I'm working with certain other kinds of thread. Okay, now here I pulled my stitch too tight. Okay, so I'm going to take that stitch that's too tight and pull it. And then I'm going to pull this one over here. And then I've just straightened it out. Okay. So I will put on a vinyl glove if I know I'm going to have a hard time going through fabric and pulling the knot or pulling the thread through the material. There are like the finger cots that you can use, or not the finger cots, the rubber like thimbles you can use, or if it gets really hard, which I've had some stuff that I've been sewing, it is really hard and I've had to use my needle nose pliers. And then when you go through, make sure you're going straight down. If you go through at an angle this way, you're coming out like that. You're going to come out really close to this bottom edge, and you don't want that. You want to go as straight down as you can keep it. Wrap your thread underneath. And I hope I'm not going too fast. I hope you guys can understand. So we're going to put our needle in and wrap that thread so we're not taking that extra stitch and trying to find the loop. Okay, so there's my needle. My thread's going underneath and coming on this side. And I'm left-handed. So if you're doing this, you're going to probably start, you're going to sew the other way. Okay, so we're not going to sit here and do this because I have one that's almost all done. And let me show you if on this one, and I have to see if I can find matching thread. That's too dark. Okay, so that I can show you if you run out of thread, what you need to do. And you can wrap these around. You can buy the little cards and wrap these around the card, because you're going to get a big mess just like I have right now. So when you pull out the thread, okay, so I'm just going to pull out enough and I will deal with that later. So I have to get a needle threaded here somewhere. And I'm going to use the fatter one because I have my other ones already threaded. So I'm going to knot my end of my thread. And I do a couple of knots. And then cut that off 1/4 inch or so from the end of the knot. Then you're going to go, and this is probably going to be hard for you to see, but I will check on the camera in just a sec. So you're going to open it up because this is where I ended. So now I'm going to take my thread and let me check and see if you guys can see. Okay, so you can kind of see. I got to back up a little bit here. So you're going to go, you're going to pull this apart. You're going to find, this is how I do it. If there's an easier way or a different way that works for you, that's fine. You do whatever works for you. I'm going to find that stitch inside there and pull that up. And I'm going to try to take a little bit of the fabric, but I'm going to try not to go through to the other side. So if you get just a little bit, and you can check, so that I can get a loop and make a knot, and I'll go through that loop with my needle twice and then pull it, okay? And now I'm going to come up, and I have my thread here. Here's my last stitch. I'm going to go under that stitch, and like I'm going backwards. Okay, I just got to check and see if you guys are seeing it. I should have used a different thread, but I want to be able to use this. So I'm going back through the top of that stitch, okay, right there. And now I can go on the underneath side and keep my stitches the same length and the same width and the same distance apart. And I'm going to pull my needle up, and I didn't wrap my thread around, so I'm going to pull up a loop. Okay, and now you're going to start over. Let me show you that again. So that's how I can undo my stitches. So if I can find a thread under here. Okay, so there it is. And maybe I'll have to do a video just on doing hand stitching and sewing. So we've knotted in here. We've knotted it in here on a little bit of the fabric. So now we're going to take this thread that's over here. We're going to go underneath that top stitch and come back here. And I don't know if there's a certain way to do this blanket stitch when you run out, but that's how I do it. So now I have my thread. It's coming underneath this stitch, coming backwards. So now I'm able to take my needle and go on the bottom side and poke through about the same distance away from the stitch as the other ones and the same length of the stitch. And then when I get my thread here, I'm just going to pull up a loop. Go through the loop so that you can get that thread going across. Okay? So now we're going to go through the top to the bottom and wrap our thread. So that's why I had to do that loop, because of the way when I had to get my first stitch. And you can take longer stitches if you'd like. And I got a big knot. If you get a big knot, be really careful. And just try to get it undone. There we go. So you're just going to keep working your way down to the other where you started. And this needle is a little fatter than I would use, so it's kind of hard to go through this fleece. And I will work on getting the video for Rose done this weekend. And hopefully if I get it done, I can post it this weekend coming up. So I'm going to I'm just going to pull, I don't want to put a stitch right here. So I'm just going to go take my thread and go underneath that top stitch on the top and bring it, and then I'm just going to knot it off somehow. So I'm going to pull up a loop and go through that loop a couple of times, and I don't think I knotted it. I think I lost it, so I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to pull up a loop, and then I'm just going to take my thread and go between these two and come out so that I can hide my thread inside there. So if I have time later, I will do another short video on how to do that. Okay? So now I have the inside circle, and I'm just trying to make sure I have enough. So this is, and there'll be a pattern, 3 inches by 10. So we're gonna fold right sides together and we're gonna sew this. So I'm gonna use the same thread, and we're just gonna do a running stitch. You can machine stitch this if you want, which that's probably what I will do. I will sew this, and then I will machine stitch this, and then I will do the other, but we're gonna hand sew all this. So you're gonna take, and you're gonna notch your end, and you're just gonna do a running stitch, which is a straight stitch. And like I said, this needle is a little too thick because it's hard to get it through. So don't take too big of stitches, but don't take tiny stitches either, because then we're gonna go back the other way so that we don't have any gaps. So you can sew this any way you want to, if you want to try to hot glue it, but I prefer the sewing, machine or hand sewing. I did not like the hot glue, but I did do some hot gluing on some of the arms and the legs. So now I'm going to come back up, and I'm going to try to go opposite of where the other stitches are. See, this needle is way too thick. So if you can see, I've got stitches where there's no stitch. So I've got my thread coming up, and I'm going to go down here by that stitch. And then I'm going to come up on the other side of that stitch where there is, and then go back down where there is no stitch. And I have got to get done with lunch here, so I am going to take a break and I will be back. Okay, I'm back. So we are going to finish the hat. I have to thread my needle. So we're sewing up the top of the hat, this part right here. We're sewing that side seam. So this is going to go around our hat like that. Okay. So we went down, and now we're going back up. And you're doing where there is no stitch. So we came up, and now we're going to go back down right beside the previous stitch that we did, and go back up on the other side of it. And then back down, there should be your knot right there. So however you want to do that, and sew it if you want to hot glue it, but if you hot glue it, when you glue it, let me show you on a scrap piece. So if you hot glue it, and this is not a good square piece, you're going to take and you're going to glue right sides together, just like you would if you were sewing. And you're going to put your glue on the very edge of that piece of fleece, and then you would press it down, and I would try to press either down or out that way, because if you press in, you're going to squeeze that glue in. And the only thing when you hot glue this, you have to let it dry. I would let it dry for a few minutes. So when you do something, then work on something else. Because if you try to turn that inside out, it's going to come apart, and you're going to see that glue. And you still might see the glue a little bit. So let that dry, okay? Okay, so we have this done. I just have to knot it off. And I'm just going to knot it off by taking a little piece of the seam and then just draw up a loop and then go through the loop a couple times, pull it, and then if you want to weave your thread end into the seam, you can do that so it's kind of out of the way, and then cut that off. And now we are going to attach the top part, and we're going to sew that on also. And I'm going to use this same thread. Hopefully I'll have enough to go around. So you're going to knot it. And then cut like 1/4 inch from the knot. And then I'm leaving my needle. I'm leaving this end, this tail here. So you got to be mindful of that it doesn't come off your needle. And you're got the wrong side is out. The right side of your fabric is in. So you're going to find the right side of your circle. And I'm going to leave all the pattern. It'll be in a PDF. And I'm not going to pin this. If you wanted to, we'll pin it. And I will leave a couple of different circles and patterns for probably just about everything. The only thing I won't leave a pattern for is the outside of the body. I'm just going to leave what the dimensions of that are. And don't forget, when you cut your fabric, all your patterns out, try to cut them on the stretch. And I'll show you what I mean in just a second. So go around, and if you want to pin all that circle on, and I will give you a few different circles so that if what you cut out is too small, then there'll be a different size circle. So that's how we have it pinned on, okay? I'm just always going to check and make sure you guys can see it. Okay, so if you're going to cut on the stretch, and here is my fabric I've been just whacking off of. Let me cut some of this off so we can at least have a straight edge. Okay, so this way, if I were to cut my sleeve, and here's my sleeve, this one doesn't stretch. So I didn't cut that. This one stretches. So this is going to be where his cuff is going to be. It's not going to stretch. So if I need to get a ball for the hand in there, I'm not going to have any room for give. So I need to recut that one. So this one, it stretches. So I'm just going to line that up. I'm going to and try to get it even. So I have stretch and I have stretch. This one, I don't have any stretch. Okay, I have stretch this way, but that's too short for his arm. Okay, so and then when you do your hat's not going to matter because it's a circle. And when you do this part, you want it on, if it doesn't need to be on the stretch for that, but it's not going to matter. But yeah, usually it's the hands, the arms is what the most important one is for on the stretch. And then the hat. Okay, so let's set those aside, and we're going to sew this hat. We're going to sew this top part on, and you're going to start back by the seam. And we're just going to do a running stitch. So we brought our thread, and I know I'm using brown thread. So I'm going to take a peek and see what you guys can see. So let me get you a little closer. So let me do a couple of stitches, and you can get those close together. So then we might not have to go around twice, but I got this thick needle, so it's a little harder for me to go through. And it just came out, so now I'm going to change it. So let me find a needle here that... And they do have needle threaders, which I have some. Okay, so we're going to go... We're just going up and down, and I just did an overstitch. So we're going to take our thread needle off and take that stitch out. I didn't realize where my thread was. And if you're ever trying to thread your needle and you can't, cut it so it's all the ends are fresh and there's no little fuzzies. So we're going down and we're going up. And you can do, if you want to do it, where you push the material onto the needle. It goes a little bit faster, but then you have bigger stitches. And it's hard to get your needle through. So that's probably the quickest. So we'll do that, and my needle came off again. So if there's anybody out there that doesn't know how to really sew or anything like that, leave me a comment so that I know how many of you guys sew, how many of you use a sewing machine. That's helpful for me. How many of you prefer to use a hot glue gun? So what I'm doing right now is I'm taking my needle and I'm going in and out and putting the thread or the material on the needle, and I'm pushing it through, and then I'm pulling my fabric back here so that I can pull my needle through. Sometimes when you're going through some of this fleece and sewing, it gets really hard to just pull the needle with your fingers like this. And I found out that if I pull the needle and the fabric, that I'm kind of pulling that fabric off the needle at the back of it. So now we're all the way back to the seam. And let's take our pins out because we don't need those in anymore. And so we're going to take another stitch here so we get our seam. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this right side out, and I'm going to look at my stitches, and they're not too bad. So we're just going to leave it. We're not going to go around again. So now we're going to knot this off and just take up a loop of fabric by the seam, and then I have my loop here. I'm going to go through twice. You can go through 3 times, and then pull that tight, and there's our knot. And then just weave it in a little bit on this seam down here by the side of the hat, and then cut it off. Okay, so now we have to sew it onto our brim. So let me get some more thread, if I can find it. I didn't use it all up. I really have to organize again, and I'm constantly doing it because I don't have my own craft room, and it gets very frustrating because I just use my son's bedroom as storage, and then I've got to put something away quick and I just dump it in there. So okay, so I got another piece of crochet thread or embroidery floss. That's what I use when I do my blanket stitch, and I sew all this together. And if you know anything about embroidery floss, you can separate. There's 6 strands. So if you only wanted to use 3, you would separate it, pull them apart. Okay, so we're going to turn this right side out. And now you're going to find out what you want for the top of your hat. And you find out where you started, because you can feel your knot in there. So that's the back part. And I want this to be the top because I can see more, I think, of the stitching. Nope, this part. I can see more of the stitching, so I think it looks prettier. So that's going to be the top of the hat, like this. So this one I don't have sewed either. So it's going to be like that, and I have to make sure, and I don't have that one right either. So this is going to be the top. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take, and we're going to put this part through. So this is our bottom of our hat, and this is our top. So you're going to find this seam, the back of your hat that we just sewed. This is the top of it. And we're going to find our knot. And if it's right there. I had it right here. It's right here. Well, that's one part where we started. But you can't really tell. Okay, so that's the top. So you're going to take and find where you're going to sew, and my knot is there. So I have my back seam is going to go, and you're going to put your hat through, and you're going to kind of turn this. So you're doing right sides together. The right side of the hat, the top of the hat. Okay? And then you're going to fold that down. So here's the top of our hat. We're putting our hat in here because we want this side and this side to be together when we sew it. And then when we get done sewing it and we flip this out, this seam is going to be underneath here. So right side, the top of what you want as your hat. And this needs to be right side out. And we're just going to fold this down so we can pin these together. And let me do a couple of pins, and I will show you before we start sewing, because it took me a little bit to figure this out once I had to get the pattern and stuff. So it can be a little confusing on how to sew this hat. So there we have it pinned. We have the top of his hat is right here. We have this is the right side out, and we kind of put this in the middle of the circle and folded this up so that we can pin these together. Okay, so if we sew all this seam is going to be underneath that hat. So we want the right side, this outside of the hat, with the top of what you want your hat to be. Whatever side you want, it doesn't matter. For me, I can see the stitching a little bit more on this side, so I want that as the top. So you're just going to put those two together, and you're going to end up going like this. Okay? So that's how we want our hat. Okay, I'm going to take a little break, and I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. So let's pin this. And then we're going to sew it. And that's why it's nice if you cut some of your stuff on the stretch. If one part is a little too small and the other part is too big, you can sometimes stretch the one. You can make it work. Okay, so I have my needle, and we have to knot it, or I have my needle threaded. And we're just going to do that same running stitch we did when we sewed this on. So you're going to cut that short. If you want to leave your tail long and then tie your knot, tie the two ends together. I've done that. So now we're going to start where the seam of our hat is. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to go on the inside. So we're just going to do that running stitch. And I'm just going to push my fabric onto my needle. But we're going through 3 layers now, so it's going to be a little tougher. And you got to have a long enough piece of thread. So if you go stitch by stitch, you can get your stitches closer together. It's just going to take a little longer. Okay, so we're going to do, it's called a running stitch. If you go on YouTube and search how to hand stitch, there are a ton of videos out there, I'm sure. And I want to make sure I didn't get my... So I will try to do a video on the hand stitch, on the stitches that I use. And if I can get it done this weekend. So we're just going to keep going like this. And let me see how much you guys can see, because I want to make sure. Okay, I'm going to show you a few more times and then I'm going to pause and I'm going to finish this. So you're going to do it. You're going through all of the fabric. We're going through 3 layers. And you got to make sure you're catching all of your layers. And I just did I did a loop. So now I got to take out my needle. So that's why I do my needle, I thread my needle like that. Because when I make a mistake, I can take the stitch out. I mean, if you were hand stitching a seam on a pair of pants or a shirt or something, you wouldn't want to do that. You could. I guess you could. Okay, so we're going up and down. You gotta make sure you're getting all of your layers. Okay, I'm going to do a few more and then I'm going to pause this. And I took my needle off my thread off my needle again. That's why, I mean, it doesn't bother me that much, but it's just when you have to keep threading it. But then it's going to save you a lot of problems in the end if you've got to rip stitches out, but then you got to start all over because you've knotted it. Okay, so we're going up and down, and I'm going stitch by stitch. Then we're not going to have to go around twice. Okay, so let me take a break, pause this, and I'm going to finish this, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now I'm right back to where I started with my stitch. I'm just going to take up the last one, and I'm going to go on the inside of the hat, take up some of the material, take a stitch in there so I can get a loop. And I have my loop, and I'm going to go through that loop about 3 times. Maybe. My loop kind of got twisted. And then pull that tight, and then just weave it down into that side seam of the hat. Nobody's going to see that. It's going to be on the inside of the hat. So there's our hat. So that looks really good. So now, let's see, we need to get his nose on. We'll do his nose. And then we got to do, look, let's wait with his nose. Let's do his legs. Okay, so his feet. I have got another way of doing shoes for you guys. And if you can't get a hold of this thing that I'm using, then I don't know. There's my shoe. And this is what I've used. 2 big nuts. And I'm not sure how big they are. I will try to find out. My dowel rod that I used is like 3/8 of an inch. And what I had to do for my dowel rod to get it to fit in this nut, I had to whittle away some of the end of it. Okay, so that's what I had to do, and hopefully you can see that, because you can see the difference, okay, from it not being done and it being whittled away. So what I did, and I did it over the garbage, you want to do just a little bit and use a box cutter. And then before you do too much, see if you can get it to turn in there. And I can't yet, so I'm going to do a little bit more. If you do too much, then you'll have to do the other end, which I've done. And I still can't get it to turn in there. Almost. A little bit more. So if you take off a little bit at a time, otherwise you can use the other end, it won't matter. Because that's what I had to do on these ones. Okay? I did it too much and it wouldn't stay in. And if you can get it to turn in there, and then twist it on, and then I glued it. If I have my pattern. So I had a foot, and I drew it, and I have the pattern somewhere, and I will do one of those. Let me get rid of all my shavings. So now you're going to need 2 nuts for each foot, because you're going to glue it on like this. So you have your dowel rod, and there is like a back and a front, because then you'll have the weight of that nut in the front. Okay? I'm going to back you up a little bit. So I glued this one on first. And I'm gluing it because it's narrower in the back. So it's however you want to do it. So I just put the glue on the nut. And my glue sticks, if they're the ones that are the Gorilla Glue sticks from Joann's, they're like yellow, and I don't care for them. So you're going to put that on, then you're going to put some glue in the front for the other nut and lay that on there. And you can let that sit for just a minute till it starts hardening. So we'll go to the back one, and I'm just going to build it up around the nut and on the piece of cardboard. And you'll have to squeeze it in between, and it'll just go down. So this is going to hold our shoe. So if you can get cardboard and a dowel rod, and a couple of nuts, then you can make these shoes. So now go around the other nut in the front just to build that up. So we're encasing that nut in this hot glue. And you're going to let that dry really good. And then this is what we end up with. So now we're going to take a circle. Let me get everything out of the way. And I'm going to let that dry. Try not to stick my finger in it. So let me see. Make sure you guys, I'm going to back it up a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to take a circle. And this circle is about 4 inches diameter. And you're going to do a big running stitch so that we can pull up the gathers. So it's going to look like this. And I think that looks really cute. It doesn't have to be perfect. There be different kind of shoes. Find the wrong side of your fabric up. And you're going to go about, a half, a little more than 1/4 of an inch running stitch. And then, you can knot your thread, or I don't remember if I knotted it. I don't think I did, but you can. It's easier. I usually don't when I'm doing a running stitch because I want to pull both ends and gather it. So, and then make sure you keep the same distance away from the edge of the fabric all the way around the circle. And you can double up if you want to double up on cardboard. Do a couple of layers, you can do that. I just did the 1 layer. And if you use another kind of fabric that frays, you'll probably have to fold the edge over. But fleece is so nice because you don't have to do that. It doesn't fray. Okay, so now we have our base. And I'm going to have to take a quick pause here because I have to start work. So I'm going to take the gather. My ends of my thread are going to be in the back of the shoe. And if you want, I want to make sure this is going to fit. Okay. So we're just going to take a little bit of glue on the bottom of the shoe, his foot, and get it centered in. Okay, you want it further toward the back because it's gotta come up. It's gotta come up. You don't have to put the glue. I don't think I really did. I wouldn't. Don't do glue. Okay, don't do what I just did. Because then you're able to move it and you won't wreck your circle. So now you're going to pull up, and I'm just going to cut my needle off. Now you're going to pull this up, and you're going to see if everything sits okay. And I would do both of them at the same time so that you can get both shoes looking the same before you go in. And I did not put any stuffing, so you don't have to put stuffing if you want. If you have room, you can. So now what I did was I just put a bunch of glue in there, and then I pulled up my gathers, and tie your knot. Get your gathers all tight. Get your gathers as tight as you want. And then knot this. And then cut those ends if you want to cut them a little bit longer so you can tuck them in. Now you're going to take your glue gun and you're going to clean your tip, and you're going to try to squeeze glue in here. inside these gathers, inside the shoe. And then you're going to press that shut. And if you need to take, I don't have a little stick. You need to take a little, like, skewer or stick and press those in. It's going to kind of get covered up by the pants leg, okay? So I just really press that in and glue it. And there's our shoe. And I will finish the other one. I will be back. Okay, I'm back, and we finished our shoe. So we have that done, and the other one, this is the one we did. So they look just alike. This one's a little bigger. And I did put the ribbon on. It's not perfect, and I had to use some like scrapbook paper, and it's a silver for the buckle. And I will show you how I cut that out. So I just cut out a little tiny piece of paper. So you're going to have to see what you can find. And this is a thicker paper. So I had to take, and we want to leave a piece in the middle. So let me get you close enough so you can see what I'm doing on this one, because we're so far away. So we're going to cut, we're going to leave a middle bar, and I'm going to try to hang on to this. So let me get my cuts here first. It's kind of hard to show you and try to cut this at the same time, because you have to use like an X-Acto knife, or I'm using a I think it's a finger blade. It's by Fiskars. I think you can get it maybe at Hobby Lobby, maybe at Walmart. Joann's, I'm not sure. Okay, so I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see where I cut. And now I'm going to poke out those two squares. And that's what we're left with. Okay, so you want that middle bar so that when you slide it on your ribbon, and I have to see, because I have to make sure you guys can see me now when I do this. So when you slide it on your ribbon, that the ribbon has something to rest on in the middle, otherwise it's just going to fall right through. So it's like the buckle. And the buckle I bought for the hat, it's an adjustable side buckle. And I got it at Joann's because Hobby Lobby was closed. It was probably a Sunday. So I got that for the hat. And I think that's the smallest one I could find. The other one on this hat was probably from Hobby Lobby. This one was from Joann's. So I think if you can get them at Hobby Lobby on sale, you can get them 50% off, and I don't remember how much they cost. So this one is going to be a little bit bigger than the other one. And of course, I just got rid of a whole bunch of them at my rummage sale this summer. And that's what usually happens after you get rid of it. Then you use it. You can, it's like, well, I need it now and I don't have it. Okay, and I lost my cover for my little blade, and I don't know what I did with it. Okay, so we're gonna we'll put the buckle on the other shoe. I'm gonna slide that one off, and I'm gonna take my edge of my ribbon, and I'm gonna take a lighter, and I'm just gonna melt that so it'll stop it from fraying. And just start at the back center, and you're going to go down right below this, so you're not going to go right up next to it because the pants is going to come down and cover that top edge about a 1/4 inch or a little bit more. So just put your glue on the back of your shoe to start with. And when I did this one, I put the glue on the ribbon. I would put the glue on the shoe because when I put it on the ribbon, my ribbon head and my little buckle I made slid up, and then I had glue down here, and I actually just trimmed it away. So if you're very careful if that happens, you can trim a little bit of it away without really seeing it. And I'm going to cut some of this ribbon because I have it too long and my buckle was on backwards. So then I would wrap it around and figure out where it's going to go. And you're going to have to probably gather it because these shoes are not square or whatever. And just put it on the shoe itself. And you want to try to get it in the same spot as the other one. So do a little bit at a time. And then put it down there. And I lost my buckle. It came off now that I need it on there. So you got to get your buckle in the front so you can glue it down. Otherwise, you'll have to rip it up. So put a little bit on the back of that buckle and that ribbon. But be careful so it doesn't slide around on you. And then just press it down. And then if there's any ribbon that's not glued down, we'll go back and get that glued down. And I'll show you. So I'm putting the glue on the shoe like that. And I'm just going to press it in. It's not going to be perfect. And then bring that around and cut that excess off. And then if you can, very carefully lift that edge up and then get the lighter and melt the edge of it. You don't even have to get the flame to it hardly for it to melt it. And then get a little bit of glue back there so you can glue that edge down, that ribbon. And then you're going to clean the tip of your glue gun. So we have some edges that are sticking up. I'm going to put my glue gun in there and squirt just a little bit and press it down. So if you have another way you want to do this, you can do it however you want to. If you have one of the other kind of shoes that I've made and you want to do that, you can do it that way. And I think my buckle is off a little bit. And I'm going to see if I can, I don't think I can move it without ripping it. Okay. So now, because you got to get that on, and now we're going to put his pants legs on. So I glued these, and I showed you how I did that earlier. I'll show you on another one, and I've got way too much stuff in the way. So you're just going to take, and you're going to run a bead of glue right next to the edge of the fabric. And you do this, you can do this for the arms and the legs. And then fold it over, match up your edges, and then gently press it down. You don't want to press the glue going into the sleeve. If anything, you want to press it going out. And you got to make sure you get a bead of glue going all the way down the edge. And then you have to let that dry really, really good. Okay, I'm going to back you up some. Okay, so I have mine already glued. set that aside. And then you can turn it right side out. So this is one that I glued and I let it dry, and it actually looks really good. So we're going to turn this one right side out. And you have to get your pant, you have to get these legs, these are his pants, and you have to get those on before we put his legs in here, and I'm going to show you how I did that. So you're going to glue, and I got a little bit of glue on my pants. See, so right here I have a little bit of glue, if you can see it. And I'm just going to take the scissors and lightly trim off just a little bit, and now it's gone. Okay, so we're going to put that on, and I'm going to fold up the edge of his pants. Actually, yeah, I'm going to fold up the edge of his pants because I don't want his pants to get in the glue. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the pants. I'm not going right close to the edge of the the bottom of the pants. And you're going to keep the seam in the bottom. And very carefully bring that down because we're going to glue that in place. If it covers some of the ribbon, that's okay. Then you'll just hide your mistakes. And the bottom of his feet get really fuzzy and all kinds of lint. And now if you want to lift it up and put a little bit more glue in there, clean off the tip of your glue gun and squirt it in there. So that looks really good. So we're going to do that to the other one. The seam in the back. And you're going to flip up this edge. Let me get you guys a little closer. So you're going to flip up that edge and you're going to put your glue on the pants, on that bottom hem. And then you're going to keep the seam in the back and kind of pull up the pants leg, and very carefully, try not to get it on your buckle. Bring that pants leg down and cover. You're going to end up covering your ribbon, but that's okay. So this is, I'm just showing you, this is one way of doing the pants leg. If you have like the, see if I have any, the foam rollers from the Dollar Tree. They have these foam rollers and they come with a wire in them. And they come with these little buttons on the end, so you'd have to take that off. It hooks like that. So you could use that. You could use, I've seen people use corks, and then you'd have to drill a hole in the cork to get your dowel rod because you need something to put in the shoe. But this is how, one way that I came up that was just really easy for you guys to make a gnome that's standing. Okay, because I know not everybody has the same stores all across the whole world. So there's our two legs. Those look pretty cute. And now what we're going to do is we're going to find out where we want his legs, because we are going to cut like slits in the bottom of his body for his legs. So if you want those really close together, and we will glue this, his pants leg. And let me see where I had. So I had this, his kind of in the middle of his body. And I didn't have any problem. He doesn't have any problem standing up. If he does, it's usually you have to adjust their body. Oops, too far away. Okay, so you're gonna need a box cutter or a really pair of sharp scissors. So I'm just gonna fold his pants legs down so they're not in the way. And I am just going to see where I want them. So I want it kind of in the middle. And if you can take and press it down and try to make a mark on the material here where the legs are going to go, because we want it centered. And if your dowel rods are not the same length, it's not going to really matter because it's going to get shoved up inside of his body. Okay, so I got kind of right there and there. So if you wanted to, and now I'm trying to find my, if you wanted to measure, if you got these both sitting side by side, if you want to measure how far apart they are, like from the center of each one, it's about 1.5 inches. So then if you want to find the center, you got to make sure you know where the front and the back is. So if we go to from one side of this body where the cardboard is inside to the other, it's about 3 inches. So if we find the center, and we'll put a pin, so there's our center, and then we want 3/4 inch where that pin is, and to 3/4 inch on the other side would be 1.5 inches. Or no, I'm sorry, 3/4 inch, yeah, to 1.5 inches. So I'll go over this again. Okay, so you're gonna find, because my piece of cardboard in there is about 3-inch diameter. So I found the middle of that, which is 1.5 inches, and did a mark with my pin. And then from this pin over here to this pin, so there's got to be 3/4 inch between these pins. So from this pin to this is 3/4 inch, to this one is 3/4 1.5 inches. And that was the width of our legs. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to take my box cutter, and I'm kind of watching where my mark was. So right about here, and I'm going to push my box cutter in, and I'm going to go on the other side, and you're going to try to go through. You're going to have rice, so we have to get that glue up in there. And if you have to make a hole with your scissor, you can put it in there and turn it. And then we're going to just take and see if our leg fits in there, if you can get it in. And this is going to determine how tall he is as to how far you're going to be able to put it in there. Now we can take that middle pin out. And I have his shoes on backwards. Okay, so there he is. He's a little, so yeah, like I said, sometimes you have to adjust their bodies. I know even with my ones that don't have legs, I have to adjust their bodies. Okay, so now we're going to take these legs out, and we got to be careful because there's probably going to be rice coming out. I'm going to put my glue gun inside there. And where's my glue sticks? And I had one of my subscribers tell me that she puts her glue sticks in the freezer, and it keeps them from getting stringy. So now you got to hurry up and work quick because you have to get the glue in the one hole and then get the glue in the other hole, so you can adjust the height of his feet. And he's got stuff all over, so make sure you got his front and his shoes pointing the right way. And if you want his feet pointing out, this is the time when you want to do it, because once that glue sets, you're not going to be able to turn him or adjust him. Okay, so we're just going to let it sit and dry, and you're just going to let it stand, and there should be no glue leaking out, and there isn't, so we're going to let that sit. And now we're going to do his sleeves. So I did them the same way that I just showed you. I glued it, and I'm going to turn it right side out, and then we'll glue his little cuff on right here. And I just cut a piece of white fleece, and all these, I got all the patterns are going to be PDF. They're going to be linked below. So it's a free PDF, printable. So turn your arms right side out, and the seams are going to go toward the back. And then I have some wooden balls, wooden beads. They're going to go in for his sleeves, for his hands. So we're going to do that first. And these ones might be a little small, but it'll be okay. I don't want to use the bigger ones. I think it'll be too big. So you're going to squirt a little bit of glue inside there. And you want to try to hide that hole on the bead. So I try to tuck that in, and you got to work quick. And then just squeeze that all the way around. And if any glue comes out, you can wipe it off. And you got to be careful so you don't pinch the glue down here, because it'll be just one big chunk of glue. And I've done that. But if we put ribbon or something around, it wouldn't matter. But on this one, I didn't. And then just go around the edge and make sure you have all your edges glued. And we can trim off any excess of that doesn't, you know, so it looks nice and neat. Okay, so you're going to squeeze that on there. We're going to let that sit. And his other one. So grab another bead. And I get my beads at Joann's. They come in a big bag. And there's 3 different sizes of the round ones. And then there's ones that are kind of like, I don't want to say a hexagon, but I can show you. And I haven't used them. So push that bead down in there just far enough to cover up the hole of the bead. And then take your glue gun, make sure the tip is clean, and go in there. If you have to squirt a little bit more glue. I use my small glue gun a lot more than I do my bigger one, just because I'm working with small, doing small work, you know. I'm not doing anything big. So then, I keep losing my scissors. They're right here. Oh, good Lord. So then trim that off. So like this one looks like it could be trimmed. So we're going to trim that, so we can at least see some of that bead. And there's a little bit of glue peeking out there, so I'm going to try to trim it off. And now you're going to take And this I cut about a 1/2 inch. You could cut it smaller. You could use ribbon. You could use whatever you wanted to do around the cuffs. If you just wanted to tie a piece of ribbon or jute or whatever, you can do whatever you want to. So I'm going to start right at the seam where the sleeve is and glue this on. I'm going to glue it on, put it on the sleeve itself. And there is a right side and a wrong side. So now I'm going to go and I'm just going to glue it on, put it on the fleece. And it's not going to take much. I'm going to wrap it around. And you bring it to the other side. And I'm going to see where I need to trim it. And then pinch that down and together. And if you still wanted to cut more of this brown, you can do that if you can get it. Okay, so there's that one. And now we're gonna, you only need one because this one is gonna go around, is gonna be enough to go around this other one. And then by the time we get this done, his legs should be dry. So I kind of fold it over my thumb. I put the glue on the sleeve and then I'm going back on the fleece. And just be careful because if you're using a high temp glue gun, it's going to be hot. So now I'm going on the sleeve again. And I'm going to get to where I started and then cut that. And there's our sleeves. So before we put his sleeves on, we have to do his beard and his nose. So let's get that out of the way. We have his vest, and I'm working on the pattern for that. So you get his nose, do his nose first before we do his beard. And what I did, because I was making a lot of gnomes, is I made up a whole bunch of noses. Okay, so now let me see if I can show you guys how to make a nose, because I've got mine all made. Give me just a second. I'm gonna see if I can go find some fabric and I'll show you how to make a nose. Okay, I'm back. So I'm going to show you how I make my noses. I think I usually do it every video. And I get, oh, if I had it here. And I had a little card on the fabric that I used. I believe it's a knit jet set fabric from, it's from Joann's, and I believe it's a knit jet set. It's kind of a soft knit. It's very stretchy, and it's the flesh colored, if that's what you want to call it, or it could be nude. So we'll cut, and when I do my giveaway, we're gonna have my 1,000 subscriber giveaway, I'm gonna put some of this in with the box. So there's going to be a lot of goodies in there. There is a right and wrong side. To me, it matters anyway. So you're going to get your thread or your crochet thread. So get that. And I usually buy the big spools. I mean, if you go to Hobby Lobby and they have it, usually I think it's like $3.99. And if you can get it 50% off, I mean, it's going to last you forever. Okay, maybe not forever, but it'll seem like it. Okay, so you're going to take your fabric. You're going to have the right side facing down. and I put it over my hand like this, and then I start stuffing and grabbing onto it and poking it in, so I'm got it like this, okay? And how much stuffing you put in there is going to depend on how big your nose is. If you like a big nose like I do, I use more stuffing. That might be a little too big, so we're going to take some out. And then you're going to grab all of these ends, and you're going to take your thread, and I have it doubled, and you're going to put it over like this, okay? So you got it like that. You're going to take one side, if you make it a little longer, that's fine, and wrap it around like once, and then pull both of them really tight, and then wrap it around two more times and pull it tight, and you can let it sit there and it's not going to come undone. And then tie a couple of knots. If you do the surgeon's knot, it's like 2-3 loops, and then pull it, and then I do just a regular knot after that. And don't cut these off, because this is what we use to tie around his neck, so we don't have to glue it on. And then you're going to take and pull up these gathers so you can get the nose nice and tight like that, okay? And when you're making his shoes, I would probably do like a couple layers of the cardboard. And I just reminded myself I have to put that on the pattern too for his shoes. So you can kind of shape his nose. If you want it rounder, then you work yourself all the way around. If you want it flatter and wider, you're going to go from the top, the bottom, and the top. The top to me is where the string is knotted. Okay, so now we're going to take, and I pull the string over the nose and hang on to it, and then I put the rest between my fingers, and then I cut it at least a good 1/4 of an inch away from the string. Okay, so that's how we do our noses. And then I wrap it around the back, and then you're going to go around the front with each thread, come around the front and go to the back again. And you got to make sure you don't pull too much on his nose with your hands, but you want it nice and tight with the string. And I'm going to lay them down. And then you're going to do a couple of knots. And then you're going to cut that about a 1/2 inch or so. Not too long, not too short. Okay, so there we have that. Now we're going to do his pants. And we're going to glue his pants legs up here. And I just want to make sure how I'm going to do it. Because I think when I did the other one, this was not a fleece that I used. So I had to fold my edge in so that the raw edge was tucked inside of his pants leg. The fleece, you don't really have to do that because it's not going to fray. If you want it to look more like it just blends right in, then yeah, you can tuck it in a little bit. And then we're going to glue it. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to tuck it in. And it may be a little hard to tuck it by the seam. It may want to kind of pop because that glue is stiff. So that's what I'm going to do. So I tucked in the material inside the pants leg a little bit, and then we're going to go really carefully. You're going to get your glue gun and a Kleenex and clean that tip off. And I'm going to try to show you guys how I'm doing this. I'm going to get you a little closer so you can see. Ugh. Okay. So you're going to be very carefully, tip of the glue gun is clean, and you're going to lift that up, and you're going to go right really close to that dowel rod, and then put that pants leg down, and you're going to work all the way around. And I can't see. I need another glue stick. I have a piece of glue, or a chunk, stuck in there. So we're just kind of lifting up the pants leg. Then you might have to get the one out of the way. Oh, I kind of lost it. So go right around close to that dowel rod and put glue. And then you're going to put the pants down there. And if you have to use a little stick or something so you don't get your fingers in there, okay, so keep that pants leg out of the way. We're going to do this a little different. And we're going to get glue all the way around, right close to the dowel rod. Okay, so just like that. And then you're going to bring the pants leg down and tuck it. That worked a lot better. Make sure you keep your seam in the back so that his legs don't get twisted. And then hold that, press that down so everything, the pants leg is into the glue. Okay? So yeah, so when you do it, bring your pants leg down, put glue all the way around the dowel rod and on this underneath side, so right next to the dowel rod, but on the bottom of this brown fleece. And then have your ends tucked inside, and then bring it and put it in there. It worked a lot better that way. So there's that. So now we're going to do his vest before we do his beard. Then his beard won't get in the way. So I'm still working on this pattern. And if you use fleece, it's a lot nicer because it will stretch if you don't get it too big. And so I have it upside down. So I have the curved spot. So it's going down like a little vest. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to glue this on. I'm just going to take some embroidery floss. And I'm going to tie a knot. No, I'm not. What we're going to do is we're just going to go in one side. And you're going to go right on these two corners right there. And we're just going to tie a bow and just leave it. If you want to glue it and glue a bow on, you can do that too. And I'm going to give myself enough room. If you want to do a couple of these, a couple of bows, you can. But I'm just doing the one because it's it's really not going to be seen, but I want it to still look nice. I'm trying to tie this bow. So you get your bow however big you want it. And then I left some tails of the bow. If you want to use ribbon, you can use ribbon. You can use whatever you want. And so then I'm going to cut these right about there. And now when we put his beard on, we have to be careful so we don't get glue on there. So you're going to put the glue right on the underneath side, and I've showed how to do this. I'll just give you, I'll tell you. So lift his nose up. Be careful you're not going to get the glue on the vest. But you want those, the ends of the nose where we cut it off, you want that underneath the beard. And you're going to press that in, and then you're going to take glue on these side tabs, and you're going to glue those right up next to the nose. And if you glue it to the side of the vest, that doesn't matter because somebody's not going to play with it and take it off. I wouldn't think, but they're really not toys. So I got to make sure I get his beard straight. And then I'm going to take a little bit of glue and I'm going to put it down where that knot is. And like that. And now we have to do his arms. And I don't stuff their arms. I mean, I just don't, I guess. If you want to, you can, but I usually don't. So find out where you want his arms, and I'm just going to pin this. And I don't want to lose any pins. And the seam's going to go to the back. So we want to make sure his arms are the same length. If you want them coming more like this to the front, then you have to glue them that way. This one is a little bit longer. I think this one is a little bit longer than the other one. Not by much, but. Okay, so we're going to glue these, and it's going to get glued on the side. You're going to glue inside the sleeve itself a little bit, and then on the side that's going to go next to, right up by his body. And I'm going to angle them forward, and then we're going to have to make sure we get his hat covering these sleeves too. So we'll see if my hat is going to cover them. And now he's got his arms, and the seam is going to go to the back. And we're going to put his hat on, and then do the strap and the buckle. So now you're going to take and you're going to lift this up, and you're going to glue right. Let me get stuff out of the way. Yeah, my lamp is falling over. So you're going to glue right where this edge of the brim and this hat is. And his vest came up over those gathers where we cut off for the body. And then press that down. And you're going to work your way around. And then try to keep his beard out of the way. And be careful of the glue by his nose. And then go to the other side. Because you want that to cover up all that hidden little areas and stuff we cut off that we don't want anybody to see. Okay, so now you want to look and see before that glue really starts drying, if you have everything glued, if you have the hat on the way you want it. Okay, that looks adorable. I have glue strings everywhere. Okay, so now we're going to take the buckle. I'm going to see how this is going to work out with it being bigger. I don't know if my strap is going to be wide enough. So you're going to take and put your buckle or your, whatever you're going to use. If you're going to use like black fleece or ribbon, you're going to weave it in. You're going to go from like the back and you're going to go over that bar and come out the other side. So it's like that. I think because I don't know where my black, I have a wider one. Okay, let's try this one as a little bit wider. This will probably work. There we go. So now we're going to center this. And the way I did his on the other one was I glued it and then I just left the, like a tails kind of coming down. So if you want them longer, you could do that. But I cut it like that just because it worked out better wrapping it around the hat instead of wrapping it and overlapping them like we did the shoes. Okay, so you got to make sure you have enough to wrap around. And I got to see what I'm doing here, where this buckle is going to go. I wish I had the smaller buckle. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue on this buckle. I got to make sure I got it centered. And I'm going to center it right over the top of his nose. So I put it right on the back of the faux leather and the buckle. And then I would take and put the glue on the faux leather. Because if you don't get it, the faux leather on the hat where you put the glue on the hat. See, now it's just coming down around, so I'm just going to let it do that. And then do the other side. So I kind of went back and forth to get a little bit of glue on. And then really carefully lay it over the hat. And then press it down. And then I just took and laid it down the back of the hat. Let me turn this so you guys can see. I gotta put my glue gun. I got strings everywhere with my glue. I usually put it in the freezer, take it out, and it usually is pretty good, but I didn't do it tonight. I kind of forgot. So I'm gonna take and I'm just gonna cut this off. So it's like that. And it could have been overlapped in the back a little bit, but I'm not too worried about it. And there is our little gnome. If you wanted to make something for him to hold, you could make, if you wanted to do like a little book, you could do, if you had like some wheat, I got some, let me see if I can get a little bunch of it and see if we can get it for him to hold. If I can find my, I'll be right back. I'll pause you guys so you're not waiting and waiting. Okay, I'm back. So I have, and I got this wheat. It was like a big bunch, and I believe I got it at Walmart, maybe Hobby Lobby. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tie some of this with like this white, if it's jute. If I can get it tied around there. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue on that knot so it doesn't come undone. And then tie another little knot so it goes over that glue. And I'm just gonna glue. I want to leave a couple little tails of the jute. I'm gonna call it jute because it's not really rope. And then if you want him to hold it, you can do that. I gotta see what it looks like before I decide if I'm gonna glue it or not. I'm just going to pin it. That's usually what I do if I'm not sure if I want them to hold something. I will take a pin and pin it. And even if I pinned it from the back so I can't see the pin, you can do that. And then I would glue him so that he's holding on to it like that. If you make his arms longer, you could do it so he's, you know, like it's wrapped around his arms. It's really hard when I'm trying to show you guys and see. Okay, so I think I'm going to glue it right, big wad of glue. I'm gonna glue it right there. I'm gonna put it on his vest. Try to keep everything out of the way. And then I'm going to wrap his arm around, put glue on the arm. And you're just going to want to hold that for a little bit. That looks cute. Can you guys see? I got really loud there because I got close. Let me bring this down so you guys can see probably a little bit better. So there is Jasper, our pilgrim gnome. And where did Rose go? We lost Rose. Where's Rose? And then Rose will be coming next. I think they turned out adorable. So you guys let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like what you see, you like my content and you want to see more, click on the subscribe button. If you want notifications, click on that bell. and that will notify you each time I upload a new video. If you already have subscribed to my channel, thank you for supporting me and joining my crafting community. I appreciate it so much. So if you guys have any questions on what I did, there will be the free PDF linked below. There will be one for Rose, so I will work on her next. And if you have any suggestions for gnomes you would like me to try and make, let me know. Any questions on anything that I've used, where I've gotten it, if I haven't linked it, leave me a comment. Okay, thank you guys for joining me today. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.